Imagine this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a man who has built his reputation for standing up to China, a man who banned over 250 Chinese apps, the man who's challenged China's hegemony at every turn.
118 apps have been banned by the Indian government of Chinese origin. That comes after early this year.
India has announced plans to ban 54 Chinese apps.
Has somehow become a very popular figure on Chinese social media. It's like the guy who flipped you off in front of your whole family, becoming the most popular man in your family. In fact, he's become so popular that on Chinese social media, he even has a nickname called Modi Laoxian.
Despite the heated India-China border dispute, Chinese netizens adore PM Narendra Modi as Modi Laoxian.
So today we're going to talk about this popularity. Why is Modi so popular on Chinese social media? In a country where social media is regulated so heavily, how is he still able to gather such a cult following? And what does this mean going forward for the India-China relationship? Is this a positive thing or a negative thing? Let's talk about it. So Modi is known as Modi Laoxian over in China.
You know our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi?
Everyone knows he's famous in China. But
Oh, really?
Laoxian is a term rooted in Chinese culture and often carries a mystical or spiritual connotation. It loosely translates to an elderly immortal with uncanny abilities. Lao means old, but in a respectful sense, often implying wisdom or reverence. Xian refers to an immortal sage from Chinese mythology or Taoism. And so together, Laoxian can be interpreted as a venerable immortal or ancient sage. So essentially, Modi is being seen as some sort of a Gandalf-like figure in China. Modi is somebody who is well known for utilizing social media to build his image and the image of the BJP. He's been using this since he was a chief minister in Gujarat to connect more intimately with his voter base, something that has really paid off for him in the political arena as well, with Modi now being a 3-term Prime Minister of India. And so the Chinese point to both his dress and his physical appearance, seen as Laoxian-like, and some of his policies which are different from India's previous leaders. Chinese social media users see his attire and physical appearance and relate it with wisdom and experience. They associate it with an elder statesman who views India with not just a short-term lens, but also a long-term civilizational lens. And understand this, that it's very rare for the Chinese to give nicknames to a foreign leader, indicating that Modi has made a significant impression on the Chinese public. The Chinese, who take a great amount of pride in their culture, are seeing how Modi has presided over a cultural revival in India. India, which was more ashamed of their culture than Sonia Gandhi is of Rahul Gandhi, has in the last 10 years seen a rejuvenation of its culture. In September 2023, when the G20 summit was held in Delhi, Modi proudly flaunted India's culture to the world. Modi's also presided over the reclamation of the Ram Mandir.
सदियों की प्रतीक्षा के बाद हमारे राम आ गए.
And the development of various temple corridors throughout the country.
330-meter Kashi Vishwanath corridor that stretches from the complex to the Ganga's Lalita Ghat.
Modi's tenure has also seen the building of grand statues of Indian deities and prominent figures throughout the country, the abrogation of Article 370 and the permanent integration of Jammu and Kashmir with India, as well as the passing of the Citizenship Amendment Act and the general success of the Hindutva ideology politically as well as culturally in India. What's also resonated with the Chinese is Modi has emphasized cultural diplomacy to strengthen its ties with East Asian countries. His initiatives such as promoting yoga and Buddhism resonates positively with Chinese audiences. The gifting of a sapling from the Bodhi tree and organizing large-scale cultural events have also been well received. The Chinese also see that Modi is positioning itself to be a competitor for China in case US businesses start getting cold feet about China now that Trump gets elected and he's thinking of imposing high tariffs on China.
Nilesh, thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk a little bit more about why Foxconn has been making these moves out of China into India.
I think it all ties to geopolitics.
Apple assembled $14 billion of iPhones in India last fiscal year, doubling production and a sign it's accelerating a push to diversify beyond China. For more,
hearing a lot more companies who are moving out of China wanting to come because they find the policies a lot more attractive, not just the PLI, but overall the ecosystem is now far more facilitative of such companies coming out.
This factory manufactures hundreds of thousands of televisions and air conditioners a month. But now it's in the process of turning into a different kind of operation.
Modi's tough stance on security, his firm handling of terror threats, and his willingness to stand up to China have made him a very different figure from the Indian political leadership that the Chinese have been used to. Modi's message since he came into power to India's enemies has been fairly clear. India will stand strong. And if there's one thing that the Chinese respect, it's strength.
और ये मोदी है, घर में घुस करके मारेगा. ये नया भारत है. ये नया भारत घर में घुसकर मारता है. गुड तालिबान, बैड तालिबान, गुड टेररिज्म, बैड टेररिज्म, ये अब चलने वाला नहीं. अब समय आ गया है कि आतंकवाद के खिलाफ और आतंकवाद को बढ़ावा देने वालों के खिलाफ निर्णायक लड़ाई लड़ी जाए.
For many Chinese observers, this promotion of national identity and heritage and strength looks like what they've done with their own Confucian revival and nationalistic pride. Modi's approach to culture is not unlike China's promotion of Confucian values. Both Modi and Confucius saw the past as a tool to strengthen the present. Over the past decade, the Chinese have seen how Modi has consistently been recognized as one of the most popular leaders in the world. He has routinely topped the list of most popular world leaders. Modi has consistently ranked very high in the Gallup's annual most popular world leaders list.
Gallup has surveyed the functioning of governments of 28 countries during the crisis period of Corona, and it has been revealed in the survey that PM Narendra Modi is the world leader #1 in dealing with this global disaster.
Modi has been featured in Time magazine's annual list of 100 most influential people in the world multiple times, with mentions in 2014, 15, 17, and 20. In 2016, Modi was conferred with the Amir Amanullah Khan Award, the highest civilian honor of Afghanistan. In 2016, he was conferred with Saudi Arabia's highest civilian honor, the King Abdulaziz Sash, by King Salman bin Abdulaziz. Think about this. A Hindu leader is getting the highest honor from the country where Islam was founded. That's some Laoxian shit right there. Meanwhile, Pakistani pilgrims to Saudi Arabia must submit a written declaration that they will not beg for money while they're in Saudi Arabia. That is an insane reputation to develop. Listen to what the global South countries are saying about Modi.
Victims of global power play, we want you to be an advocate for us, given support by you, the leader of the global South.
He was the first Indian to receive the Seoul Peace Prize in 2018 for improving international cooperation, raising global economic growth, accelerating the human development of the people of India. In 2019, the UAE President Sheikh Khalifa bin Al Nahyan conferred on Prime Minister Modi the Zayed Medal, the highest decoration awarded to kings, president, and heads of state. Also in America in 2019, the massive Howdy Modi event was organized with President Trump. Just recently, Modi was also given the highest award in Dominica and Guyana. The Chinese see that at a time when pretty much every country in the world is turning on China, they also have respected India's ability to maintain friendly relations with pretty much every country around them, whether it's Russia, the United States, and countries of the global South. Remember how last year, India successfully hosted the G20 summit in India, and one of the most significant achievements of this summit under Indian leadership was securing the African Union's inclusion as a permanent member of the G20.
सबका साथ की भावना से ही भारत ने प्रस्ताव रखा था कि अफ्रीकन यूनियन को G20 की स्थायी सदस्यता दी जाए।
This was a bold and visionary step that ensured greater representation of the Global South, and it reaffirmed India's position as a de facto leader of the Global South countries. India achieved a consensus on the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration, even on a divisive topic like the Ukraine conflict, without having to castigate Russia or severing its own relationship with Russia, despite desperate Western attempts to do so. That's an incredible balancing act. Like Akshay Kumar managing to make 75 movies in 1 year, or like politicians opposing the redevelopment of slums like Dharavi because they relate so much with the problems of the poor people while wearing a $200 Burberry shirt, or members of the LGBTQ community supporting Palestine, knowing fully well that the moment they step foot in Palestine, they will be taking a swan dive off of the tallest building there. Finally, the Chinese also see that the tiger has decided to stand up to the dragon. The Chinese were particularly surprised and perhaps impressed by Modi's willingness to stand up to China, not just diplomatically, but militarily. In 2020, amid rising tensions between India and China over the border disputes in the Ladakh region, the Chinese troops ambushed the Indian troops in Galwan Valley, which resulted in the deaths of about 20 Indian soldiers.
China's Galwan lies of hiding its mammoth death toll has been busted yet again. An Australian report has claimed that People's Liberation Army lost at least 9 times more soldiers than its official count of 4 in the Galwan 2020 clash.
But what surprised China was that India retaliated immediately with a massive attack on the Chinese army, which killed more than 42 Chinese army men. Through this, India's government, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, sought to convey a strong message to China that they can bully whoever they want, but they cannot bully India. Right after the conflict, the Indian government decided to implement a ban on several Chinese apps that were hugely popular in India. In June 2020, India banned 59 Chinese apps, and in the last few years, that total count of apps has gone up to 250, including TikTok, WeChat, ShareIt, Beauty Plus, YouCam Makeup, Photo Wonder, and Selfie City. That led to a very curious fascination from the Chinese towards India, and particularly Modi. It is also enhanced by previous Indian leadership when it came to China. Genuinely, the Chinese are not used to the Indians standing up to them. They're more used to the Indians rolling over, like your cousin's Pomeranian or Arsenal Football Club whenever they're in a title race. Come on, man. You did not have to write that joke, you know. That joke really hurts. In the early years after India's independence, the Congress Party, under the leadership of Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, saw China as a key partner, giving the slogan, Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. He also established formal diplomatic ties with the People's Republic of China in the 1950s, making India one of the first non-communist countries to recognize the PRC. The hope on Nehru's part was a strong India-China partnership based on Asian solidarity. But this admiration, this relationship was one-sided. Much like when you comment, looking beautiful, heart emoji on an Instagram influencer's page and think she feels the same way about you as you do about her. Spoiler, she doesn't. Nehru went out of his way to give China what they wanted. Nehru openly did not support Tibetan sovereignty despite Tibet's historical independence, allowing China to annex it. Nehru also created the Panchashil Agreement, or the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. Prime Minister Nehru also apparently abandoned several opportunities for India to join the United States National Security Council as a permanent member in the 1950s. He instead relinquished India's permanent seat to China in order to build upon this imagined relationship. And the result of all of these things that Nehru did for China was the 1962 war and the annexation of Aksai Chin in Ladakh.
They constructed a road across Indian territory. Indian patrols were fired upon.
This is what in India is known colloquially as KLPD. Now, I'm not going to tell you what it is because my video is going to get demonetized, so you can Google that if you wish. Contrast that with the way Modi has acted when it comes to China. In fact, even the USA supported India for banning Chinese apps and looked to emulate that in their own country.
United States Secretary of State has supported India's decision to ban Chinese applications on mobile phones. Mike Pompeo said that India's decision will boost its security and sovereignty.
The Modi government also put restrictions on foreign investment from nations sharing a land border with India, aimed primarily at China. And so now that China has seen that India is willing to stand up to them, India is not going to simply back down like other countries that China may have tried to bully. So it seems like the freeze that existed on the relationship between India and China might be thawing a little bit. It seems India and China are working out a way to resolve their tensions. India and China have recently taken significant steps to resolve their long-standing border disputes, particularly along the line of actual control in in the Himalayas. On October 21st, 2024, Indian Foreign Secretary Vivek Misri announced that both nations had reached an agreement on patrolling arrangements along the LAC, leading to the disengagement of troops and addressing issues that arose in 2020. This is a very, very important development in geopolitics because this is the first time that China has actually made concessions on areas that it technically claims, which is why it is a pretty big diplomatic coup for India. Indian Prime Minister and Chinese President Xi also met during the BRICS summit in Russia to emphasize managing disputes and supporting mutual growth and mutual understanding and respect. And look, a positive relationship between India and China is important for both countries. In recent years, the Indian-China trade has grown substantially with annual bilateral trade volumes consistently surpassing $100 billion. In 2022, China became India's largest trading partner. The Chinese have huge investments in India and have targeted sectors like technology, e-commerce, and infrastructure. Popular Chinese companies such as Xiaomi, Oppo, and Huawei have a significant presence in China's electronics market. And look, whether it's India's foreign policy, whether it's Modi's influence, but for the very first time under Modi's leadership, there's a growing mutual understanding. And this time, it's not just a one-sided mutual understanding that India and China could be more than just neighbors who hate each other. In recent years, the West has grown increasingly hostile towards China, and also because of India's independent foreign policy and refusal to cut ties with Russia, some deep state actors in the West have also grown very hostile towards India. And we have seen that hostility manifest in some indirect ways, from waving around human rights issues through government-sponsored democracy indices and religious freedom organizations like the USCIRF that are controlled by right-wing Christian zealots, to harboring Khalistanis like Guru Patwant Pannu. We have seen allegations of extrajudicial killings by Canada and USA against India. We have seen the violent overthrow of the pro-India Bangladeshi government to install an anti-India Islamist regime, allegedly with the help of the USA deep state. We have now seen allegations of corruption by the USA against Adani and attempts by the deep state-related media to tie that to the Indian government. It is possible that India and China announced the latest agreement on their border because of this hostility that they're both facing from Western governments. And look, this has the potential to be big because an India-China partnership could create a new pole of power in the world with a massive economic power as well as a population of nearly 3 billion people. That is a very, very strong pole in opposition to the Western countries. And a partnership that could, again, benefit both China and India. But unfortunately, this partnership is much easier said than done. For people thinking that this might be a new golden age for friendship between India and China, probably need to think again. For India and China to become allies, two very important things need to happen. One on India's side, one on China's side. On India's side, India needs political stability for at least the next 2 decades. A political stability that will allow India to continue to grow economically to being an $8 to $10 trillion economy. That will give India the power and importantly the influence to stand on its own, to be a major global power, and to be an equal partner in this China-India relationship. On China's side, the requirement is even more difficult, which is for China to give up its hegemonic ambitions. China needs to give up its ambitions of completely dominating every single country in its neighborhood and submitting them to China's will. And see, that's really difficult for China. It's basically asking the Chinese Communist Party to go against their nature. It's like asking Karan Johar to stop casting Nepo babies in his movies, or asking the British to make food that actually tastes good. See, on India's side, maybe in a few years they might actually be able to fulfill their requirement, but it would be much more difficult for China to fulfill theirs, seeing as their top ambition right now is to be a hegemonic power, seeing as they have border disputes with pretty much every single country in their neighborhood, seeing as they deliberately antagonize every possible country that should be their ally. Now look, stranger things have happened, but in the short term, I wouldn't bet my house on an India-China relationship just yet. But I want to ask you, do you see any kind of a positive India-China relationship developing in the near to medium future? Do you think this is something that India even needs, really? And why do you think Modi is so popular in China? What do you believe are the top reasons? Let me know in the comment section down below. And again, guys, if you're not subscribed to our Patreon or to our YouTube membership yet, please do so. Please give us a like, share, subscribe. Please let us know what kind of more English content would you like to see from our channel on this global channel. Other than that, stay happy, stay healthy. I will see you for the next one. And to all of you, a secular pranam.